Okay, ladies, so today we're going to be talking about how to best handle or deal with narcissists, toxic people, and those who come in your life simply to disrupt your peace. Trust me, I know that it is easier said than done, especially when you have been in the habit of dating people who are toxic. A part of breaking that habit and dating toxic people means that you have to really, really dig deep within and do some inner healing, right? So this is stuff that a lot of spiritualists don't want to talk about, right? They will prefer to talk about, hey, I'm going to do this ritual, I'm going to do this spell, I'm going to bring this person into your life, and then boom, it's done. It's a little bit more involved, right? And not even just a little bit, it's way more involved than that. Because a part of doing the spell and a part of manifestation also means that as you're doing the spell, as you're doing the manifestation, you're also doing the work in the 3D, right? All of these things have to coexist together. When we talk about holistic healing, when we talk about how to find your person, when we talk about how to live a healthy life so that you can manifest your heart's desires, that means that you have to take a holistic approach. And so you can't just do rituals and spells and then boom, you think your ancestors or your spirit guides are just going to put it right in front of you on the table, right? A lot of this also has to do with conditioning and healing and making sure that you're taking care of those aspects of yourself that was initially attracted to those who have toxic behaviors or toxic tendencies. Now, if you really want to get to a place of breaking the tie with those who are toxic, there are a couple of things you need to do ahead of time. Number one, you want to implement boundaries. I cannot express how important that is. Boundaries. I know, again, it's easier said than done, but this has to be something that the woman who is an empath or whomever you are, regardless of gender, if you're an empath, you're going to have to implement boundaries so no one is taking advantage of you, right? And so there's 3 things that you want to keep in mind, especially if you're someone who has a little bit of issues when it comes to saying what you mean and sticking to it. So first things first, when you implement boundaries, you have to understand that implementing them is also a righteous act. Okay? You're not being mean or just completely standoffish or antisocial. When you put boundaries in place, literally this is you saying, I respect my divinity, I understand what my purpose is here in life, and I'm not going to let anyone come in and disrupt my peace or interrupt me being able to live out my life purpose. Okay, when you implement boundaries, you're saying to your spirit guides that you can trust me to go the entire mile. I won't let another soul get in the way of me doing the work that you asked me to do. Boundaries, right? Number 2, remember, for people who are actually a part of your tribe, people who are actually members of your soul family, they're not going to care if you implement boundaries. Now, yes, they may be a little bit upset at first if it's something that they really, really, really wanted from you. But at the end of the day, you know what? They'll get over it because they realize that your peace of mind, your mental health is way more important than what it is they were asking you for, right? So your tribe will be okay with you saying, this is what I need. I'm going to have to take a break for right now and focus on what my needs are. And for those who are not okay with it, for those who tend to walk away, for those who tend to assume that this is something that, they are owed because they have this entitled mentality. Guess what? They're not a part of your tribe, right? You don't owe them anything. So those are the 3 things that you want to think about when you implement boundaries. When you implement boundaries, you don't lose a thing. Only thing you do is gain. You gain peace, right? You gain clarity. And you also gain people who have your best interests at heart, really, really being there to support you. That's it. That's all you gain. Nothing else, right? And so I wanted to talk about this too, because when it comes to dating, and I'm going to go back and talk about dating for a little bit, because this is the season, and we make jokes about it every year that this is homosexual season, but this is the season where you're going to have people who may not necessarily really feel you or be into you or want anything other than your attention or a place to live, right? Coming to you saying all of a sudden they're in love with you and they want to build with you. People like that are self-centered, they're egotistical, most often they're narcissists, right? You can't get around that. Unfortunately, we have them all throughout our society. There's no real way that we can say, you know what, this is a narcissist, boom, I'm done with them. I don't want to have anything to do with them at all. Spirit is like, nice try. It's not going to happen. All right. So we have to go over and beyond when it comes to protecting ourselves from allowing people who do not necessarily have our best interests at heart come into the picture and ruin our peace, right? So now we have, when it comes to dating tips, especially for the empath, for those who are spiritually gifted, before you even go out on date one, before you even entertain the person that is in your DMs trying to get with you, trying to take you out, you want to make sure that you know what you want out of a relationship or out of marriage, whatever it is you're trying to seek. You got to know what you want. And when you find out what it is that you want to make sure that you are so steadfast and adhering to your own standards that nothing, and I mean nothing and no one, can get in the way of you saying, these are my rules and I'm sticking to them. There is nothing that you can say or do to make me deviate from those rules, right? And I just want to bring this up too for spiritual women, because we also have this habit of just accepting anybody, right? Because we typically take a lot of the concepts we were taught in patriarchal religions, right, about whomever they believe God is, taking someone who's at their lowest, building them up, right? Then they become a better version of themselves. Well, guess what, ladies? We are not God or goddess. That is not our jobs to build them up, right? It's our jobs to live out our life mission. And you cannot do that if you are entertaining someone that doesn't have their ducks in a row. It is not your job to build with them. That's the other thing I keep seeing online. I'm looking for someone to build with, someone to help me build, yada, 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 yada. No, we're not doing that. This is the year 2021. We're not building anything together, because usually what ends up happening is, as women, we're being asked to not only build with them, right, still maintain the motherly, the wife duties, girlfriend duties, build with them, go half on the rent while they just come home and act like they're king. We're not doing that. We're not doing that in 2021. For those of you who are heterosexual and you're looking for your forever person, your spirit guides want you to be just as adamant about having a good person in your space that you would when you're just as adamant with your girlfriends. He doesn't get a pass because he's a male. He doesn't get a pass because you love him. Okay? Your guides want you to use the spirit of discernment. And even growing up in the church, I remember at one point my mother would use that term, spirit of discernment. And it was like the first time I heard it. I was like 12, maybe 13. And I ended up looking up the word discernment and understanding, what that meant. And so if there's some things that you've been hearing some of the elders say, look it up, because she's speaking from experience. She's telling you, you cannot shape somebody. And when narcissists and sociopaths, when they come to us, number one, they're going to come to you with this sob story. They all do. Woe is me, all my exes did not understand me. Woe is me, all my exes took advantage of me. They all cheated on me, right? All of these sob stories back to back to back to back to back. And they know exactly what they're doing, because you are the type of woman that's an empath. You're spiritual, you're gifted. They can feel your energy a mile away. That's why they want to play you, right? Because they're like, there's something special about her. If I say all of this crap to her, I know she just can't turn around. That's not in her. See, this is why spiritual women also have to have the spirit of discernment. This is why spiritual women also have to keep up boundaries. Because when we don't, we run the risk of getting played, right? And it's so funny because every time I go and I do a list of what my standards are, my non-negotiables, I'm always reminded of these conversations I would have with my father and my grandfather, and some of the Bible verses they would mention, especially when they talk about, a man and relationships and things like that. One of their favorite ones is, a man who doesn't work don't eat. A lot of these youngins out here, if you talk to their forefathers, the men who you would be around there working in the 40s and the 50s, they don't understand this mentality of, hey, I'm going to just sit home while she works, take care of the family, but I'm still king. Right? I have this discussion with my father all the time. And he would always say how men in his generation, they just don't understand it. Now, don't get me wrong. Men of his generation, they also not perfect. Because clearly the guys of my generation, the younger ones, there's some bits and pieces they haven't picked up. Some things they have not learned. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for the men in my family. And it's funny because when I go online and I preach all of this about women having high standards, women doing what they're supposed to do, women walking in their power, there's always one person's ashy son who will bring his behind in my comments to say something slick like, this is what happens when they don't have a father figure. All lies, because let me tell you something. Not only was my father present in my life, my entire life, right? So was my grandfather's. And the men in my family, the elders, they created this example. A man does not work, he doesn't deserve to eat. If a man cannot provide for his family, he does not deserve to have the title of a man. Period. I don't get into all the little intricacies that everybody talk about these days, because guess what? I fell for it. And this is why I ended up in the predicament that I was in the very beginning. This is why I'm divorced now. Because I said, oh, this is not working for me. I want better. I deserve better. So if you're a spiritual woman, remember this. You do not have to take someone else's bare minimum because you feel that somehow that makes you humble. In fact, I hate the word humble. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it with a passion. People use that word and folks don't even take the time to look up what the word means. I hate the word humble. All right, you guys. So this is the definition from the Oxford Dictionary of what the word humble means. Definition 1. Having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. Definition 2. Of low social, administrative, or political rank. Definition number 3. Lower, referencing someone, and dignity or importance. Now, why on earth would you label yourself as humble? Do you really think that you're beneath someone else? Is this what your spirit team want you to think about yourself? Because if that's what you think about yourself, why are you doing the rituals? Why are you doing the spells? Why are you doing the manifestations? Why are you waiting on your twin flame? Because here, if you feel as though you deserve any old thing, If you feel as though you don't deserve the very best, you're wasting your time in everything else you're doing. You're just wasting your time. Ladies, I cannot stress this enough that as spiritual women, we need to start making sure that we adhere to our standards. Before someone can come in our space, before someone can entertain us, they have to be able to meet the bare minimum. Our spirit guides, our ancestral guides did not go through all of this so far, right? So we could just sit and say, okay, we're just going to take any old thing. We're going to fold our hands. We're just going to give up. Whoever is going to take me, so be it. I'll establish whatever with them, and I'm going to hope and pray for the best. Your foremothers did not come this far for you to have to deal with that, right? And so I say all of this to say, this is only part one about the narcissist. And I'm circling back to the narcissist. Trust me, this all is interconnected. When a narcissist come into your life, or someone who is toxic comes into your life, not only will they give you a sob story, not only will they give you a sad story, they're looking for you to be their savior. And so they'll also say things like, nobody else understands me the way you do. No, that's not the case. All of their exes understood them perfectly fine. They just screwed all of their exes over. And now, since all of their exes left, they're looking for a new person to screw over. So that's one of the things that they have in common, right? Now, of course, all narcissists are not going to come from this perspective of, I want your stuff because I don't have stuff of my own, right? Narcissist comes from all different backgrounds, not one background in particular, right? So the other way narcissism folds out, if the person has money or they are well off in life, they tend to want someone who does not have as much so that they control them. So that's the other way narcissism rather. You also see that play out regarding money and finances and stuff. So this is why, again, your spirit guides want you to be armed with knowledge, right? Use the spirit of discernment. Be wise. Understand what the red flags are ahead of time, right? It's not enough just to say, hey, these are my standards. This is my list. You have to say, okay, this person meet this on my list, but you know what? There's another red flag that's making me question whether or not they're going to be good for me. Once you see a red flag, it's time for you to dip. You cannot save them. You cannot do Reiki on them. You cannot pray them through. No, your guides want you to say, hey, I see a red flag. I'm going to recommend, if you can do so safely, that they go see a therapist or they talk to their pastor. But it's not for you to fix them. And that's where so many spiritual women end up messing up. This is why so many of us end up in relationships with narcissists and sociopaths, and then they end up draining us. And once they drain us, we wonder, why are we repeating the same pattern over and over again? And that's because as spiritual women, society have fooled us into believing that the relationship is only legitimate if we're out here playing Sister Save a Man, right? That's the only thing society will tell you. The relationship is only legitimate if you're out here trying to save someone else. It is not your job to be Superwoman. It's not. Whatever their mother, their father did not teach them, it is not meant for you to come and do the rest of the work. So for this first part, for those who are listening, this is your homework from this first part. This is what Spirit wants you to do. Number one, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to friendships, your spirit team want you to compile a list. Compile a list. What is it that you need from your relationships and your friendships? Number one, okay? Because your needs matter. I know everybody else tell you to, quote unquote, be humble. And we already talked about why I hate that word. But now we're talking about now living life on your terms. So you have to figure out what it is that you really, 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 really want out of life and go after it, right? So that means in your relationships and your friendships, you also have to figure out what it is you want from the other person too, so you both can meet halfway. So know what you want before you go into anything. Number 2, the other part of the homework too is this. If you're already in a relationship, or if you're already in a friendship and you're starting to worry about whether or not this thing is actually healthy or if it's toxic, take your pen and paper and I want you to split it in half. On one side, write all the positives from this connection. On the other side, write all of the negatives from this connection. If you see a lot more red flags than you see positive bullet points, that should tell you something, right? So even in this season of growth, we can still reevaluate some of the people that we already have in our lives. Sometimes we're not always meant to stay with those people, and you know what? That's okay too. Right? So number 1, if you are in the process of still looking for your soul family or your forever person, write down what your standards are. The second part of that is once you get finished doing that, also write down the pros and cons from current relationships, if you have any, that you may be looking at and trying to determine whether or not it's healthy or not. That's the other thing Spirit wants you to do. And number 3, Spirit wants you to take time to meditate and talk to your guides. Because some of us, we only go to our guides when we want something. And then there's others of us who only go to our guides in a formal way, right? So if we're not playing meditation music in the background, if we're not doing anything like sitting in a yoga pose or whatever, then we don't bother. But sometimes your guides just want you to come as you are and tell them what's on your mind, because that's how they can help you. Maybe you need more clarity from them. Ask them, hey, spirit team, you know what? I'm clairvoyant. I need you to give me this sign in a dream. Or I'm clairaudient. I need you to whisper in my ear what it is I need to hear. Or I'm clairsentient. I need you to show me via feeling what it is I need to feel about this person. Ask your spirit guides to break it down in a way that you can understand. So you won't see those red flags as possibilities, right? You want to see those red flags as exactly what they are. They are stop signs. It means that we leave this person where they're at, learn how to love folks from afar. That's one thing I was talking to my therapist about last week. That this whole season that I've been going through in this year in 2021 has taught me the art of loving people from afar. Once I'm disrespected, once I'm taken for granted, you know what? It may hurt, but I'll get over it. I'm going to walk away because I understand my worth and I understand my dignity, right? All right, ladies. So this is part 1 for relationships, or why rather empaths connect to narcissists in our relationships. There'll be a part 2 and part 3, because when it comes to narcissism, this thing, it's just so in depth, right? Just so in depth. So please join us for the next 2 sessions. If you do have specific questions, you know that you can either send them via message if you're listening to this on a live webinar, or if you're listening to my podcast or my YouTube channel, you can also send it via email. Okay, so my email address, admin@pisceanspirituality.org, and my folks will make sure I get that email as well. Okay, so have a good one, you all. Remember, boundaries, standards, that's what your spirit team want from you. Have a good one. Take care.